Hey there, journaling friends! Welcome back to this cozy corner of the internet where we'll talk about journaling, memory keeping, creativity, and stationery. I'm Hani from Cafe Analog, and today I want to share how I use my stamps. I love stamps because they are so versatile. If we have high quality stamps, they can last a lifetime, and we can always use them again and again to make different types of stationery items like letter paper, memo pads, bookmarks, and many more. So today I want to show you how I use my stamps and how I usually play with them in my journals or crafting projects. The first one is very simple actually. I love selecting a specific corner, word, or image on a stamp design and inking them separately to highlight only a part of the word or design I'd like. So instead of using the whole design of a stamp I own, I just ink the part of the design that I want to capture. I think this is a good way to get the most out of our stamp, and by doing this I can basically get 3 to 4 different designs depending on which part of the stamp I ink. It also means that when I travel or go on journaling dates, I can carry less stuff because I know that I can just use one stamp in different ways and I can get different images, patterns, or words just from one single stamp. The second one is treating my stamp as a sticker. So I will stamp my stamps on different kinds of paper. I will cut around the edges and basically use them as stickers. This does take more time, but I love the look of it because the paper I stamp on has different texture, weight, or color compared to the paper of my journal. I can get more depth and contrast, and the image or words on the stamp can stand out a bit more. Sometimes I also stamp my word stamp on colored paper or paper with different textures just to make sure the text stands out among other elements in my journal pages. And the third way is to layer my stamps. So basically you just put one stamp as a background, one in the middle, and another in the foreground. I usually do this by using different colors of inks, so like colored for the background, darker than that for the middle, and darkest ink for the foreground. But I can also do just 2 layers, like one stamp at the back and one at the front. It depends on how many inks that I have. If I only have one ink color, I can also just dab the fresh ink a bit with tissue paper to make it fainter if I want to use it for the background. Then I can go in on top the same color, but I can load more ink onto the stamp surface, and this will give me the illusion of depth on paper, but also without adding too much bulk to my journal. The fourth way I love using my stamp is by adding it into a scene, a photograph, or a collage from a magazine. So for instance, when I see this photograph, I see the sky is empty, and I just stamp some birds on top to create a scene of my own. I think this adds some playfulness and a bit of story to something generic or plain, and I use this a lot in my journal to add some points of interest. The fifth way is using my stamps to create tiny gifts. For instance, bookmark. I can combine my stamps and just make a simple bookmark by stamping them on handmade paper or carton paper, and then I can punch a hole at the top and I can put an eyelet with a beautiful string inside. And I think it will be a simple and lovely gift, especially if you want to give a book to someone. You can just add this bookmark and put it inside, and you can write your message at the back, maybe why you choose this book for this person. and I think it would be a nice touch for a personal and functional gift. So I like this a lot, and you can be free to create whatever you like and using many different stamps. And I really like making this because I have a lot of books, and you will never have too many bookmarks. The sixth way is making your own letter paper, calendar, wrapping paper, postcards, envelope, or memo pad by stamping on it. This is also super easy and super relaxing. I think it's a great way to do some crafting project while also using some old stamps of yours. So you can just cut a paper you like into the size you want and create an elaborate design or paint a scene with your stamps. I love making postcards with these stamps because they're just so unique, and then you can send it out and include it in Happy Mails. So it's really, really nice to create one. The seventh way is to stamp on vellum paper. And this one is a bit tricky because you need to use a solvent-based inkpad like Stazon inkpads that adheres well to non-porous surfaces. And if you're allergic or sensitive to strong odors, I will not recommend this because solvent-based inks usually have strong odors, and you must also clean your stamps afterward with a special solvent to remove the excess ink. However, I must admit I love this technique, even though sometimes I have to hold my breath and open the window when doing this. But it is so beautiful to stamp on vellum, especially because you can layer it on top of other paper, as it gives that feeling of depth, and it also gives that soft, dreamy vibe where everything seems like fading away. The eighth way is to create a frame with your stamp. So of course, if you have a frame stamp or frame-like in a way, you can just do it right away. You can stamp it on paper, and what I love to do is to cut the inside part of the frame to use in my journal later on. However, if you do not have a frame stamp, you can also create one with your own stamps. For instance, I have the stamp and I can just cut a piece of paper to cover the areas I do not want the stamp to go through, and I just stamp on the outside to create a frame around that piece of paper. Once I'm done, I can lift the paper and see the frame appearing, and then I can cut the area with that paper. So now I have my handmade label frame. And here's the last one of how I like to use my stamps. I like to stamp it on non-paper surfaces like wooden box, cotton bags, linen bags, or even my traveler's notebook leather covers. I think it's just a great way to customize these things. Just make sure you use waterproof archival ink if you want to wash the fabric items. I usually just stamp my stationery pouches or my leather pouches, and I don't wash them because they're not dirty. But if you want to wash something, a fabric that you have stamped on, just make sure that you use waterproof ink pads. So I guess that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the stationery play video on working with stamps and have some ideas on how to play with your own stamps. If you have other tips on how to use stamps, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. We'll be happy to get inspired and discover new ways to use our old and new stamps. So happy journaling, and remember to pour your love and soul into it and have fun. See you next time. Bye!